charge is arson in the first degree. Indictment 2019 GS 15 00129. The charge is murder. As to the charge of arson first degree, we, the jury, find the defendant, Craig Anthony Lewis, not guilty. As to the charge of murder, we, the jury, find the defendant, Craig Anthony Lewis, not guilty. And this was signed by the foreperson on today's date, November 7, 2024.
Thank you. Would either party like the jury to be polled?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Members of the jury, thank you very much for your service. Our entire judicial system could not function without people like you who are willing to give up your free time, your time.
All right, welcome everybody, welcome. And we have a verdict in the burned alive, unaliving trial. South Carolina versus Craig Lewis, wrapped up in 3 days. Now, shorter trial, especially a case like this. Now, down in South Carolina, I noticed, unless it was a case like the Murdoch trial, these cases don't take long. I've covered a few of them down there, and they really work hard to keep the case as on point as it can, as efficient as it can, and they get these cases done. Now, I admittedly going into closings, because I had split my time between this case and the baby case, I evidently missed some things, and I've gone back and looked, and I did, because once I listened to the defense's closing, I thought the state's in trouble here. That defense attorney I was very impressed with throughout the case, but I wasn't sure the direction everything was going, because if you go back to the opening statements in this case, she really didn't give much of a preview. She acknowledges that. She didn't give much of a preview. She just let them know that they weren't going to be able to meet their case. They weren't going to be able to meet the elements of the case. They weren't going to be able to prove arson. They weren't going to be able to prove what this was. And then when we got through the closing, I said, "Oh my God! I mean, this sounds like we're on the road to a not guilty." And comparing the state's closing with the defense's closing, I went back and started relooking at things. I went back and relooked at the daughter's testimony, and was like, "Wow, holy cow! I missed a whole bunch of stuff in this case." One of which, that there was a money motive here, and I think it's interesting to see the play on this case, because we have the daughter of the victim here, not his daughter, but the daughter of the victim in the case, asking for money 24 hours before this thing happens, and then taking advantage essentially of this situation that occurred, and going to the hospital and making allegations against Craig Lewis that he was an abuser, all for apparently money. That's what the defense said, at least. And when you go back and look at this case, this is a case where, look, this is one where the jury, when they're in that box and they're reviewing this case, this was an attentive jury. This was a jury who got this case in 3 days and looked at this case completely, had a complete view of it. And unlike the viewers at home who were in both Court TV and my poll, almost 95% certain that this guy was getting convicted, boom, he gets acquitted. So we're going to look back at the testimony. We're not going to be too long here, but we're going to go back and look back at the daughter's testimony, because that's really the cross-examination specifically, because that's where the understanding comes in of why this jury did what they did. Not to mention that there were some aspects of the way this fire took place, which I kind of thought it was a little bit weird, the way the state was arguing this thing, that they were like, the guy takes her into the ER. And that was kind of the first thing that I was struggling with a little bit on my own, which was like, if he's trying to kill her, he doesn't take her to the ER. Even if she doesn't, I mean, the state's theory was she didn't end up passing away. So he's like, well, I better take her in. No, you don't do that. If this guy's trying to light her on fire, he would just continue lighting her on fire, or he had firearms in the house. He's going to shoot her and get rid of her body. So this made no sense whatsoever that this was an attempt to kill her. It doesn't mean they didn't have a terrible relationship or there weren't problems in their relationship, but I understand why once I heard the defense's closing, I was like, wow, this case has problems, big problems. And then you couple in the fact that the police literally rushed to judgment. They didn't do any investigating. They go to this guy's house. They assault him at his house. He's trying to go down to get to the burn unit. And they rip him out of his car and beat him up right there at his house, and then take him into custody, where he then spends 30 days in custody and never gets to see his wife ever again. And she ends up passing away. And then on top of that, the only witness the defense called, there was some concern over what she actually passed away from, because she was a lady who had just a multitude of medical issues that were plaguing her. And some of this might have been the neglectful behavior of the daughter, because the daughter, when she was under, and this is what the defense argued at least, but when this woman was under the care of the husband, he kept her alive. There was several serious illnesses that if he was wanting to kill her, hey, he could have been neglectful in his care of her. Instead, he did everything in his power to keep her alive because he loved her. Question at hand is, did the jury get it right? I think they did in this case. I think looking back, hindsight, going back, and I was shocked when it happened, when the verdict happened, and that's what I've kind of spent the afternoon reviewing back through some things and re-looking at it and thinking, how did the jury get here? And I think the jury did their job here. I think this is why, even when we're trying to watch these things from YouTube or from court feeds or whatever, it's nothing like being in the courtroom. There's something different about that when you see live testimony in the courtroom, not seen through a screen, but physically in person, and hearing the cumulative case. I mean, this jury resoundingly said not guilty. They deliberated it. It was like an hour and a half. That's it, which is extremely quick. When not guilties happen like that, it tells you that case was just absolutely troubled. So, tell me what you think. Let me know in the comments. If you watch this case, if you watch some of this case, what are your thoughts on the verdict? What are your thoughts on the evidence? And did you or didn't you watch the closing argument? Let me know. Go back and watch it. I have it posted. It'll be coming up. I've got a whole bunch of videos posting and premiering for you to consume. You can also go right into the live the live broadcast and see it there as well. But it was amazing. I mean, it was a really, really good closing argument, in my opinion. I was very, very, very impressed with the defense's closing, and I listened to every bit of that. I actually put the other trials to the side, focusing on those closings. And when I walked away, I thought in the back of my head, I'm like, I was struggling, because I'm like, well, up until I realized all of the evidence the way this defense attorney helped me see it, I'm like, I thought this was an open and shut case. And I said, geez, I could see this being a quick not guilty. But there was still something in the back of my head where I thought, after the Ferris jury did what they did, and I thought, you know what, this jury's going to want to convict this guy. And then it was a refreshing breath of fresh air to see this jury take an analytical approach to the case and come back with a resounding not guilty here. So anyways, let's watch a little bit of this daughter's cross-examination, because this is where understanding this verdict comes in, when we start to look at the cross-examination here. So give me a moment, and we will jump into it.
Good morning.
Ms. Kellum, how old are you?
Trick question. 47.
And you went to high school with Craig?
Different schools.
But y'all were in high school at the same time?
Yes.
And You used to bring Craig over to the house? Were y'all friends?
We were friends, yes.
And he came over to the house?
Yes.
At age 16, he started living with your mother. Is that correct?
Living with her now.
When did he start living with your mother?
I really could not tell you.
When did you leave the house?
When I left and went to Clemson in 95.
And how old were you?
Should have been 18.
Okay. Did Craig ever live with your mother before he eventually married her?
Yes.
And how long did they live together before he married her?
I really don't know. It was a long time, but I don't know.
Okay. And you were 1 year older than Craig.
A few months older.
Okay. You talked about the house that you were in, and your parents divorced. How old were you when they divorced?
12 or 13.
Okay. And then you lived with your mother alone.
Yes.
Okay. Your mother eventually, when she was with Craig, had to file for bankruptcy, didn't she? On that house. Did you know anything about that? And Craig had to save it?
I do know she filed for bankruptcy. I don't remember if it was before she was in that house or after.
So one of the first things to say here, this is an incredibly strange story. This, her daughter here, right? 1 year, Craig is 1 year older. There's 1 year separating them in age, and he's come in, starts living at her house while they're in high school, and then he falls in love with her. So there's a little bit of some odd stuff here where there's like this underage relationship with the victim, which should be concerning, I think, to people. It kind of goes without talking about here. I mean, it's like, what the heck are we talking about here? I mean, this woman gets this guy when he's 16 years old. I'm assuming Craig must have had a tough upbringing, and then somehow he ends up living with the victim. Now, I mean, that's not saying she deserves to pass away or anything like that, but what the heck type of strangeness is going on here? That stood out to me when I was watching this originally, and I thought, whoa, what is happening? But I thought, okay, we'll see. So I think one of the areas, probably this Southern jury down here in South Carolina, probably isn't connecting very well with the victim here at all. So I think that plays into this, where, if this jury's hearing this, right, imagine them being in the courtroom and you're hearing this and you're thinking, wow, we have this guy moves in with the mom. I guess the mom's trying to do a good thing, and then they eventually fall in love. Now, we don't know when the loving relationship started. I'm sure, it might not have started, until they were older and everything was okay with it. But it's still a bit of an odd story. But let's continue listening here.
Do you remember talking with them about the house, where they got the house and put it in both of their names because he paid it off? You remember any of that?
I do remember him paying it off, yes.
Okay. And let's talk about your statement first, just a little bit, that you gave just a minute ago. You came over the day before to talk about needing money to help you buy a house. Isn't that right?
Correct.
And everything was fine when you left? You left your mother there, so everything was fine, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you talked about Craig, there being problems, but you felt comfortable coming over that day, didn't you?
Yes.
And because you'd been talking to Craig, texting him, and talking about this $25,000, the down payment.
We'd been talking for several weeks.
Now, Craig had also bought your son a truck, didn't he?
Him, and as well as my son's father paid part.
Yes, and because he paid for the truck mostly, he put his name on the truck, didn't he?
The truck was in my name.
Okay, and he's a lien holder?
He listed it as a lien holder until Thomas's 18th birthday, when it was supposed to be signed over to him, so that I could not sell the truck or do anything to it until that time.
He was concerned about you selling the truck, right? Or putting a lien on it, right?
I don't know.
Had you previously had problems with finances?
I would object to relevance. I'm not sure what her finances have to do with whether or not Craig killed Terry.
Your Honor, if I can respond, since if you would give me a little latitude, this goes to what she said about Craig helping her out and why she needed to be helped out.
All right, I'll allow it. Go ahead.
She's already testified that he has helped her out.
I
Or was-
understand. I'll let her
Okay.
go a little bit. Thank you.
He helped me out several times.
And one of those times was when you were about to lose your house. You and your first husband lived over in Silver Hills, which is not too far from Wade Hampton. Didn't you have a house there?
When I was married, yes.
And you were married to Frankie Kellum, correct?
Correct.
And y'all had a house over in Silver Hills. Then you fell behind on your payments. And isn't it correct that the first time you fell behind on your payments, Craig helped you out and that foreclosure didn't go through? Isn't that right?
No, he helped me with my car, never with the house.
The second time, isn't it correct that the second time when they were foreclosing on that house that you and Frankie had, he refused to help you because of this was the second time?
I didn't ask him for help.
Was that house foreclosed upon?
Not until after I had moved out and my husband, or ex-husband, decided that he could not afford it anymore, so he let it go.
The foreclosure and the deficiency was placed in your and your husband's name?
Yes, because my name was on it as well, but I was no longer living there.
Okay.
I was no longer making any of the payments. That was all on my ex-husband.
Didn't Craig quit high school
I believe so.
and he went to work in the logging, eventually worked different places, but he ended up in the logging woods?
Objection to leading?
I'm on cross.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but relevance, what is the relevance?
Well, it's cross. I'll let her go a little bit. Go ahead, please.
Now I've almost forgotten what I said. Didn't he end up?
All right. So, like, to me, when I was watching this originally, and I thought that is this prosecutor several times, I'm not sure if she was new or if this is one of her first trials she's ever done or whatever. But when she jumps in there and objects on cross for leading, then pretty much says, well, relevance. And then the judge says, well, we're on cross. We're going to give a little latitude, see where she's going with it. But I'm thinking to myself, this prosecutor, several times, and then even when the verdict went down afterwards, she was fighting. The defense attorney was trying to ensure some of the property of the defendant was going to get returned, and the lady's packing up. I mean, just being outright disrespectful to the judge. The judge was commending both attorneys for doing the trial and the way they acted. I thought the solicitor was really disappointing in terms of just her professionalism. And she was clearly outflanked and she was clearly outclassed by this defense attorney. And this defense attorney, if you look into her, she is a high-level politician in the state of South Carolina. She's a representative, I think she's a senator, state senator over top of Colleton County and a couple of other counties down there. She's very, 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 very well renowned. And she's a very good defense attorney. And that was on display here. So this guy made a fantastic choice in hiring her. Now, talking about what she's talking about here and what they're talking about, which is about money, and it's about the fact that Craig, and that's what this case came down to. Craig was a piggy bank. He was the guy that went to work, and apparently this lady here had turned to him for help several times. And the implication here by this cross-examination in front of the jury is that she's over there trying to ask Craig for money, right? Ask Craig to help her get a house. And then she saw an opportunity when this whole thing happens that she says, oh, I can get Craig out of the way, and if my mom passes away, then I get everything. So she goes, and basically she's the only one, she's the one in this case at the hospital. Everybody else thought Craig was a concerned husband, and it wasn't until she enters the picture and starts talking that this whole thing turns against him. And again, the state really was just ill prepared for dealing with this defense attorney and dealing with this aspect of the case. But let's continue listening here. And we're not gonna listen to this in its entirety. I have it up on the site, but I'm gonna listen to a few more clips from this, and we'll go from there.
Going to work in the logging woods to help provide for you, your family, when you were going through the divorce, as well as your mom?
I don't know that it was to provide for me, no.
Okay. So let's talk about what your mother went through. You remember appearing at the bond hearing for Craig?
Yes,
And that was on February the 19th of 2019?
I don't remember the date.
And do you remember writing a statement to the bond judge and
Yes.
reading that? Do you remember in that statement whether or not you said anything about the 3 times or being knocked down or slamming hand in the door or anything like that?
I have no idea what the statement was. I have no idea.
You would agree that that statement that was less than a month, well, about exactly a month after this accident occurred, would be the most accurate statement, right?
I was instructed to write the letter only about flight risk or risk to the community and nothing else.
And when you started the letter that way to the court, and you talked about it in court.
So one thing I would have a contention with that, which makes no sense. This lady is just a fool. Those things that the defense attorney is asking her about, which is about the violent activity that she claims happened that night right before, would absolutely have to do with dealing with the aspect of, is he a danger to the community? So the prosecutor would have absolutely or solicitor would have wanted her to include that. So that would have absolutely been the time to have done it. So the fact that she didn't, which the defense attorney is making that point, demonstrates that she's adding to the story after the fact. So that definitely was not helpful to her, and the jury saw this. It's not helpful to her and her motivations and what she's doing in this case. And of course, the state is heavily reliant on her for what she said was essentially setting the tone from the idea that she claimed that Craig had made threats to her mother, and it looks like there's this violent situation, and then all of a sudden this accident happens, and it was the violent situation that preceded that accident that made the accident look like it might not have been an accident. So the defense attorney is doing a hell of a job here discrediting her. So that's why we're playing this witness, because this was the witness. Basically everything else was building around it. But in order for the jury to convict this man, they had to believe this witness. And this defense attorney did a heck of a job discrediting this witness on cross-examination. And obviously, like I said, I invite you to watch the entire testimony, which is available right here on the channel. Go back. I'll try to pin it in the description here so you can go back and watch it. But this was damning, extremely damning. Let's continue.
You said no idea if he's a flight risk, no idea if he's a danger to the community. But then you went on to talk about the 17th. Do you remember making this statement, Leanne? The night of the 16th in the early morning, 17th, she called me to come to get her. She was screaming. Do you remember that?
Yes,
I went to Kansas City Road address. You remember that?
yes.
Through the window. You said through the window. The house was a wreck. You remember that?
I remember saying that about the Wade Hampton house.
Yes, almost immediately you raised $2,530.
Over the whole period of time, yes.
They eventually took it down because of it involved another account you started that related to you telling Terry's story. You remember that? You did daily posts from the hospital in reference to your mother's progress.
I did, yes.
And because of that, they ended up taking down that post.
No, I took down that post. Because my job helped me live in Atlanta, so I did not need any assistance.
You didn't need any money at that time, right?
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I would move that into evidence. As number 7.
No objection.
So we move to this part because this lady inexplicably starts a GoFundMe account, right? Claiming she needs all these expenses, but yet she wasn't actually doing the thing. She wasn't actually caring for her mother like she was claiming on the GoFundMe. And the GoFundMe took it down. Now, she claims she took it down, but the defense attorney says it was taken down by GoFundMe because it was not, it didn't meet their guidelines and standards. And she raised, I think you heard it there, I believe it was like $2,500 in her mom's name. So you've got this woman here who's just absolutely demonstrating in every way possible that all she's interested in is money. She's at the house, obviously, the night before for a purpose of money. She clearly has financial problems. So the idea here from the defense is that she was motivated by money and looking for every opportunity to profit off of her mother's situation. So this showed that she's willing to start a GoFundMe. She's willing to go and say, hey, her stepdad was an abuser, to get him out of the way so that she can clear it away. Then she pretty much, for all practical purposes, fails to take good care of her mother. So her mother ends up passing away. At least that was the implication that the defense attorney implies here. So again, if you take the time to watch this entire testimony, which I did today on the break, I watched it on like 1.5 times speed. Watched it back. It's absolutely eye-opening because I was watching it in bits and pieces. Yesterday I was traveling as I was going back and forth between trials. And my takeaway, I'd watched a lot of the direct, but I didn't get into this cross-examination this deep. And I made a mistake there because, oh boy, holy cow. The whole case just came apart right here. I mean, the whole thing came apart. Her credibility, shot. Unbelievable stuff. But anyways, we're going to watch a little bit more, and then we're going to call it. We're about 30 minutes in. This isn't meant to be a 2 or 3 hour deal. I just wanted to come on and do kind of a wrap up, do my reaction, start the conversation, and set it up. I'm going to be doing a live podcast on Saturday morning with my good friend Jody Bolt. We're doing a co-hosting on the record podcast. So come on in there. If you're watching this, come on in and join us with questions. We're going to be covering the Ferris case. We're going to be covering this case, but primarily the Ferris case. But come on in and talk to me about it. I'll also be doing another live. I'm going to try to do a live to wrap up because we've got, quite a few cases going on right now. I'll be doing a live where we can come in and talk. So that's not what we're doing here, obviously, because I'm not live, but this is just meant to get that conversation started in the comments and get us going to see where you guys think, what you guys are thinking of this thing. Anyways, let's keep watching a little bit here.
No objection.
IRS saying you have to file an accounting of what you did during the 11 months you were conservator. That's when she said she went to get Andy Shepard to be her attorney. And that's where the problems, when he attempted to try to see what she had done with her mother's money, that's when the 6,000 plus was missing.
But
And
the
there's-
charges and allegations at that point had been made for 2 years, right?
No, but the motive for her making the allegations can be derived under 608 by the use of.
Is that she had something financially to gain, she has made that point. Over your mother's head.
That was in the courts at the bond hearing. You also had the ability as your mother's conservator to handle her business, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Did you, what was the value of that policy? Wasn't it $30,000?
I think it was 25. It might have been 30, but I was thinking 25.
Did you change Craig's name to your name as beneficiary on that Globe Life policy?
At my mother's request, when she was lucid, yes. When she was in Charleston and things were going well and she had all of her mental capacity back, there were several things she wanted, and I took care of them all.
Throughout the 10-month period when your mother was incapacitated, doctors, several doctors, 3 doctors, filed affidavits on your behalf for your mother stating that she was incompetent, incapacitated, and did not have the ability to take care of her matters, didn't she?
Many times, yes.
They filed those documents so that you could be conservator. Isn't
Yes.
that right?
That was before she regained consciousness and regained her mental function.
Did you handle your mother's funeral?
I did.
And you handled the arrangements at Bryce Herndon?
Yes.
And did you assist in preparation of the obituary?
Yes.
In that obituary, did you list Craig as the spouse of your mother?
No.
And you knew them to be married?
Yes.
You knew your mother had a hard time throughout her life because she had a hard time with the divorce of your father, didn't she?
She did.
Okay. Is this the marriage license? Is that your mom's marriage license to Craig?
Yes.
Does that appear to be the original?
Yes.
The Terry Lee Bennett is the same one that was married to your father, Tommy Bennett?
Yes.
And on that, it shows that at the time of their marriage, it was, he was 27 years old and your mother was 49. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
And they lived together for some time, since he was 17 years old. Isn't that correct?
Once again, I'm not sure of the exact age. I know he was young, but I don't know the exact age.
Course indulgence, real quick. The day that Craig called you, telling you to hurry up, that he was distraught and upset,
He was panicked, yes. He was distraught.
and he was in the room when you got there. He didn't just abandon your mom in the hospital, did he?
No, he was there. He absolutely was there when I got there.
And you absolutely saw Craig slam your mama's hands into the door the night before. And
Several
you-
times.
And you love your mom.
Yes.
And yet you took your sick mother back to that house, didn't you?
To Kansas City?
Yes.
Yes, because she did not have keys to get into
Well,
her
how'd
own
you,
house.
you never got them. How did you get in the house?
One of the doors happened to be unlocked.
Oh, okay. And you went in? or did your mom go in?
We both went in.
Okay, did you spend the night with her?
No.
Okay. Why didn't you call the police? You didn't do that, did you?
She begged me not to.
Okay.
She promised me, she begged
Okay.
me not to.
But you are her daughter. At the time, you know she's a cancer survivor. You know she's bipolar. You know she has many strokes. You'd gone to the hospital with her when she was complaining of falling. And you also knew that she had lithium poisoning and she would just walk and fall. But yet you never said anything to the cops. You could have left her at Wade
That was
Hampton.
years previous.
Years previous. Did you know that previously she also was diagnosed with dementia?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. But you went with her to her appointments, didn't you?
Most of them, yes.
Okay. Isn't it true that after you appeared here as a victim, Craig ended up on an ankle monitor and had a pretty high bond?
I mean, that's a matter of opinion.
Did your mom love Craig?
She did,
Did Craig love your mom?
yes.
Did your mom appear to just lose the will to live?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to answer that in whole.
Did you ever write a post that your mom was failing to thrive because and I believe you told this jury earlier that she wasn't eating or anything, right? Am I characterizing it wrong? I don't want to.
No, you're not. I mean, there's reasons for it, but I just can't say what that is, so.
Leanne, you've been sworn to tell the truth here today.
Absolutely.
Are you willing to admit that after a long relationship with Craig, you were once pregnant and got the abortion, and that Craig, as well as your father, paid for the abortion when you were 23?
I would object
That
to
is not true.
relevance.
Very relevant, goes to motive.
20
The witness
plus
is
years
now
later.
answered. The witness has answered, so.
Thank you.
All right. Leanne, Miss Bright Matthews covered a number of things.
And then you have that at the end. I missed that completely. I mean, you talk about a bizarro story. Craig comes to live with him, somehow ends up marrying her mother, but apparently got her pregnant, and they got a procedure done to get rid of the baby when she's 23. So you now have like a love triangle here to where, I mean, it's no wonder that this jury is like sitting there going, what in the world? And then you've got all of the crazy machinations she did with the money. You've got the alleged lucidity of her mother that apparently the doctors are all saying this woman's not lucid. And she says, oh, no, she is. She's apparently not well enough to be able to take care of her own finances, but then just has this period of time where suddenly she's well enough to say, change the beneficiary on this life insurance policy. I mean, this was insane. And so when I went back and I had missed that ending part right there, and I missed all these parts, I'm thinking, I now know why this jury went back there and threw this case out within an hour, a little over an hour, because this was a troubled case. The police did not vet her. They relied on her, and they got themselves in a pickle because when they went over to that house, Craig, they attempted to stop him, thinking that Craig was trying to destroy evidence, and they beat the man up in his own home, violate the sanctity of his home, and beat him up, drag him out, and arrest him. And then they got stuck with him, and they got stuck charging him, and they got stuck going down a road that if they didn't end up charging him the way they did, and of course, once they went down the road of charging him with alleging that he, burned her, and then she passes away, and then they were stuck going forward with the red rum charge, unaliving charge, however you want to say it. So, holy smokes. I mean, this is one of those cases where it's just like, wow, you'd think you hear it all. This one is one for the ages. So if you haven't watched this case, all 3 days are up. I'm planning to go back and rewatch this thing, just to rewatch it with the whole, just to really get a full view on it. I've got witness testimony that's coming in. If you prefer to watch it per witness, you're going to have testimonies coming in from it. You can also watch it each day as trial was going on. I'm going to be condensing those down and making the days, it's probably maybe a total of in all actuality, maybe about 13, 14 hours of watching. But so if you watch it at 1.5 times speed, maybe 10 hours. But man, holy smokes. I'm like, this is crazy. I don't even understand why this case went forward. I mean, I know why it went forward. They boxed themselves in, but it's like, geez, craziness. Now, the prosecutor tries to come in and clean up this whole mess. We'll watch a little bit of that, and then we'll call it. But I mean, I think it's become clear here, and you tell me if you agree or not. If there's people out there that really believe this man did this, please come in. But I guarantee you, if you're one of those like I was, you just missed some things, because there's, we're watching multiple trials, and we're not focused and honed in that courtroom like the jury is, where they're right there taking it in. And her demeanor too was terrible. Her demeanor comes across as not trustworthy, which I went back and watched, and you can see how she's turned herself away. Her expressions, she's not trustworthy. She absolutely is not trustworthy. And I think that was apparent. And that was something the defense attorney told the jury to reflect on and look at, and which they are absolutely allowed to consider. But let's listen a little bit.
With you, let me see. I don't know. Is this yours? Are these the exhibits? Or where are the exhibits?
All that's still up here. And the marriage license is still up.
All right, Leanne. I'm going to show you what defense entered as defendant's exhibit number 6, and this involves the check that you were questioned about.
Yes.
What is the date on that check?
115.
All right, and is that predated?
No.
When did your mama die? Or, I'm sorry, when was the burn accident?
The burn accident was on the 17th.
Okay, so that was written 2 days prior to the burn accident, the burn incident, correct? 2 days prior?
Correct.
Okay. All right, and what did you say?
Again, well worth the price of admission. That's why we're watching this section here. This prosecutor was unbelievably incompetent. I hope you caught that there. She said the burn accident, okay? And when the jury's hearing that, you got the prosecutor calling it an accident. It's no wonder. And again, in the attitude of the prosecutor, I really didn't like that. That came through to me early on in the case. I really felt like it was not the way she needed to be. She's very dismissive. Her tone, almost, it's just like very, irritated. And to me, that I don't think that plays well with the jury. But then she's so caught up in trying to be like, the defense is so ridiculous. It's so, she calls it the accident. Why? Because she herself knows this was an accident. She knows this case was ridiculous. And I mean, my God, when things like that are happening in open court, your case is absolutely heading south. But anyways, let's continue listening.
The check was for?
She had decided after an incident on the 13th that she had to find a way out. She asked me to give her cash.
Objection, Your Honor. I've tried to give her latitude, but she's hearsay.
This is redirect from what she was asking during cross about the check. I believe Miss.
I think she can go into it a little bit. I mean, again, it was an issue that you brought up, so go ahead.
Okay, so she had just.
Let's not get into a whole lot, if anything,
Sure.
of what she said, but.
Sure. Okay. But it was for what?
To repay me for the cash that I had given her.
Okay. This GoFundMe defendants number 7 looks like $2,500 raised and some change. Did that begin to cover your travel expenses to and from Atlanta?
No. And I started that because I was asked to, because I was getting hundreds of messages wanting to help and send money, and so I did start that.
Okay. And for a period of time in probate court, is it fair to say that you were representing yourself without a lawyer?
Objection. Leading.
I'm just trying to get to the matters that Miss Bright Matthews crossed on.
Right, it is leading, but I'll allow a little bit of it just for efficiency. So you may answer.
Yes, and then I realized I had no idea what I was doing, so I reached out to an attorney.
Okay. Is it a confusing process?
Very.
Let me ask you this. Are you living high on the hog as a result of the death of your mother?
No.
Would you rather have your mother here than any money that you got out of any of this?
Well, the majority of the money went to her funeral expenses.
Okay. And
that's what you call an absolute fail. She's asked the question, would you rather have your mother here? Not about what was spent, not about anything else. And instead of answering that question, she says a majority of the money went to funeral expenses. Says it almost in an inconvenient way. Can you imagine what this jury was thinking when you heard this? This I missed, or at least I wasn't following it closely, I don't think, because I think I got to the end of it and I was like, oh, okay, there was a few cleanup things, and I didn't really pay close attention because I was switching back and forth. I mean, what a disaster. What a disaster from calling it an accident to your witness gives that answer to one of the most important questions to try to drum up and clean up what the defense has just done. And what does she do? She doesn't even say, and you can hear the prosecutor, it's like, oh my gosh, can you please get, lady? I mean, what a mess. What a mess. Anyways, a little bit more, and then we're going to be done here.
obviously, I would think that you would rather have your mom here than $1,200 or a trip to a shoe store that she wanted you to take the boys to.
Yes.
Okay. Leanne, is everything that you testified to here today the truth?
And again, I'm sorry, but holy smokes, that was a disastrous answer. I mean, what in the world is this witness plays so bad with this jury? I understand why the jury, if they had to rely on this woman to be the motive, to be the thing that makes that fire intentional, and you look at her and she can't even say that her mother being alive was more important than the financial gain she received with her being dead. And she says it in such an unconvincing, horrible way. It is no wonder that this jury did not believe her and threw this case right back. And then you have all the other stuff that, of course, went into this thing. Unbelievable. I mean, just when you look back at this, just a disaster witness for the state. Anyways, a little bit more, and then we're going to call it.
100%.
Thank you.
Leanne, you were asked about that $1,200 check, but you told the jury about freezing the safety deposit box that was, you said was in your mom's.
Objection, this is outside the scope of redirect.
She talked about the $1,200.
I know that, and the question can be about the 1,200, but you're asking her about a safe deposit box that was not part of the redirect.
It actually is technically, because as a part of that, she's saying that was her mother's way of getting money when she had access to
Hold on,
$1,200.
I think it's beyond the scope of the redirect, so sustained.
Leanne, she asked you about living high on the hog and what you stand to gain. Don't you stand to gain $50,000 if Craig goes to prison for hurting your mom?
I don't believe it's that much.
$47,500?
I believe the house was sold for $80,000 and $40,000 was put in probate and escrow.
Your Honor, this is also outside the scope of redirect.
No, it goes to
I believe it is. I don't remember hearing anything about that.
No, and I would ask that to be stricken
She
from the
asked
record.
whether she stand to gain anything, and
I did not. I asked her if she was living high on the hog.
and then she went on to say, is there anything you stand to gain?
I
and-
did not ask that.
Well, let's do this. Members of the jury, we're going to take another quick break and take up a matter outside of your presence.
It only just gets better as you watch the tail end of this testimony. And the jury heard all that. And yeah, the judge can instruct it unring these bells. But my gosh, this woman, now they find out at the end of this testimony, $47,000 or $40,000 if he gets convicted. Do you not think that with this woman who's having financial problems, that's why? And of course, then you have the changing of the stories, the adding of details. I mean, obviously, we know why this jury rejected this woman's testimony. And once they rejected the testimony, it turned out there was nothing else left to prove that this was a criminal situation and not an accidental situation. Anyways, unbelievable. Unbelievable. We'll watch this here. Again, I love this defense attorney. The prosecutor absolutely really doesn't like this defense attorney, but I think it's because she's getting outflanked and outplayed because that prosecutor went up there and asked those stupid questions that she did on redirect, which I wouldn't have even touched, right? If there's a possibility that could come in and you have a bulldog of an attorney sitting across from you, why would you even touch that? Why would you even touch that? She should have just left it at, would you rather have your mother alive than any other money? But that woman couldn't even answer that. So it was a disaster. Anyways, let's keep listening.
Can you see when the door's closed? Okay. Questions? I think it was very near the end, and let us know what those were.
I also love this judge as well.
High on the hog.
Very good judge.
It was high on the hog. It was
High on the hog.
High on the hog.
High on the hog.
Just one moment.
You know, also, let's see what questions.
Let me ask you this. Are you living high on the hog
hear that, Ms. Brain Matthews.
She opened the door on financial issues and what she used the money for and living high on the hog. She opened it. I didn't open it.
But we were dealing with specifics, and the specific you got into was not something at all on redirect. In fact, I don't think did we hear about $47,500 at all in any of
When
this?
she said that about her living high on the hog, and
I don't think living high on the hog opens that. I think, again, you're restricted to what was in redirect on recross, and I just don't think that was in there. Would there be other questions on recross, or would that conclude? That would conclude. Okay. So my plan then would be to bring this jury back in. Is there nothing else then for this witness?
Nothing else for this witness.
All right, bring this jury back in and give them an hour for lunch.
So I understand why the state didn't want to go any further with this witness. The defense, I mean, what a disaster. And when we heard the read back on that, I mean, listening to it again, and I kind of had stopped and started, so you can't really appreciate it until you hear that in its entirety, but you heard it in its entirety in the read back. What a disastrous line of questioning. Is there, you're correct, you would like nothing more than have your mother back. Actually, all that money was spent, and she says it almost in a way of disgust, like, I got nothing. It all went to her funeral. And she's like, and you heard the prosecutor being like, okay, well, but I mean, you would agree. And then she's like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, what a disaster. So if you're wondering why this case went off the rails for the prosecution, number one, that was their primary witness that they were using to say that this guy was an abuser, that this guy had been abusive the night before. Now, she claims her mother gave her $1,200 not to help her out with bills. Of course, you saw the defense attorney had pretty much clearly demonstrated that this woman was bad with finances. But then she says there's the social or the not social security box, but the bank box that she says, or safety deposit box. That's what I was looking for. That she claimed she was storing for money, but then yet this daughter had given her $1,200. So I don't know if you caught that there, which basically was showing that the $1,200 was not to reimburse her for money that she allegedly gave her mother to get away from him. That was just $1,200 that she gave her to probably help her with stuff. And allegedly there was money in a safety deposit box that the mom had access to. So it's clear she wouldn't be getting cash from the daughter because she didn't need to get cash from the daughter. Okay. And it's clear that she wasn't trying to get away from this guy because this daughter is an opportunist who saw the opportunity sitting in front of her to go ahead and say, I can take over my mom's finances. And if and when my mom passes away, I'll be in control of all of her money. I'll be in control of selling selling the property. And that's what that's the picture the defense painted. And then you have some might say, oh no, you would. But if you're that jury in person witnessing that this woman couldn't even say her mother was more important, that it was more important for her to have her mother alive than it was to have access to the money. Holy cow. I mean, what a disaster. And then you got the prosecutors calling it an accident. You got her calling it an accident. I mean, it was just unbelievable. But that's why that's one of the reasons why. Also, partly because the jury got it right. I think this case, when you look back at it, if you go back and you watch the entirety of this case, this wasn't a good case. And the jury got it right. So you let me know what you think. We'll talk about this. We'll do a live show if I get enough feedback in there, enough interest in the comments. We'll do an entire live show on this. Just a live show of talking, responding to comments. Maybe watch a little bit more testimony from it. Maybe and listen to the closing arguments together in a reactive form. I know I have them going, and sometimes I'm sitting in the little box at the bottom. I'm the little man in the box, as he said in the Ferris trial. But I don't want to interrupt what's going on in court unless it's a break or something like that. So, then there is going to be times that if we're going to break down testimony or we're going to watch testimony together, or there's a piece of testimony you all want to see, put it in the comments, send me an email and say, hey, Justice, it's a process. I'd love to see you go through and watch this and start and stop. And we'll do that, and we'll break it down, and we'll react to it, and we'll react together to it. And if it takes 3 hours to react to it, fine. But when we're watching the trial, I don't want to interrupt that, because if I'm talking, I'm not listening. And one thing you should know is if you're talking, you're not listening. And if you're listening, you can't be talking because it'll affect your listening. So you got to listen. So that's why we don't talk when the trial's going on, because then you miss important stuff like this and you get hit with a not guilty verdict and you end up finding yourself going back and you're like, wow, holy cow, I understand now. So guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I appreciate each and every one of you. We hit an important milestone yesterday, which I didn't post on, but we'll talk more about, because we've got to do the year anniversary stream to celebrate my year birthday on YouTube. So the channel started a year ago yesterday. Today I put up my first official video. I put up the infamous video where you can see how raw it was, and where I was discussing the background of the channel. I think, like I said, we're going to do a stream. We're going to talk. We're going to go over things a lot different time now. Obviously you here to it's my left. I guess it would be up there looking like you're right. I got, in addition to the family, we lost an important member of the family, and my dad. And he and I were starting this channel a year ago, going on, and had big plans, and we're still watching trials together. So it's a bittersweet thought to go back in time when you're thinking about that, because I lost a big part of things. But you know what? We've had a lot of success, and it's because of each and every one of you that are watching and tuning in, especially those that make it to the end and have gotten to hear this part. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, so you're aware of of everything we're doing, because we cover a lot of stuff. We're covering a lot of cases. We're doing a lot of things, and there's still this big announcement that I'm waiting to make regarding the premier case that we cover, but I'm still waiting on some confirmations. You guys will understand once I'm able to finally talk about all of it. But big stuff going on in a particular case. Some of you have guessed correctly on what case I'm talking about, but that's coming up. But hit that subscribe button. Consider becoming a member. I've got 11 of you out there. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be doing a members only live stream soon, where we're going to get down and talk about a few things that are going on, talk about a reward that I want to do for all of you members up there. And, just have some fun together, because you guys are the lifeblood of what makes this thing operate. The members, the subscribers, and even the non-subscribers that watch, anybody that views a video helps make this whole thing possible. And I really appreciate it, because it's for you that I bring you all of these things, all of these cases. I want to share, all of the aspects of the criminal justice system. So I really appreciate all of you. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Everybody who's agreed with me, everybody who's disagreed with me. We need it all. I want it all. So, guys, with that said, I think the jury got it right in this case. I think they did a heck of a job. I don't necessarily agree with the Ferris case. We also have some intel on that, so trust me. There's going to be some shows coming on. We're going to be talking about the Ferris stuff on the record. So tune in Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Myself and Jody Bolt at the Defense Rest are going to be chopping it up over the Ferris case. We're going to be talking about this case. We're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff. And I look forward to seeing you guys and talking to you guys there and seeing you guys. We still got two major trials going on right now. The baby in a hot car trial down in Florida. That's going to be going to the jury tomorrow. They're going to be doing closing arguments tomorrow. We're going to probably have a verdict, I'd say, by the end of the day. If not, I'd say we definitely have a verdict by the end of the business day tomorrow. And then on top of that, we're also going to be our case, the McKinley Louisma case out in Iowa. That one is my longest standing one. I didn't think that was going to be long, and I really don't think there's much, in my opinion. Again, I admittedly, I've been in and out of that case because I really don't think there's much chance this guy walks on it. But we're going to see what the defense does. There's not going to be a defense case in that case. This is a cross-examination case where the state's going to, I believe, ask that the take advantage of the fact that I think his two co-defendants are going to trial themselves, from what I've been able to ascertain. So I believe they're going to be, the defense is going to be standing on the idea that they can't prove that Louisma did anything. And one of the most important aspects of proving that happened today, inadvertently, I put up the DNA testimony earlier than I was expecting, but there was a DNA expert who was testifying today. And that DNA expert said that McKinley Louisma only had there was only one place that DNA was found. That's it. And it was in it was in nowhere that proves he either stabbed or beat this woman or moved her body or touched her body. They also, in cross-examination of the cell phone expert, demonstrated that one of his co-defendants, whom this jury has not got to meet, neither have we, but one of his co-defendants had a gun on him that night. So the implications are going to be that McKinley was aware of this gun and was scared for his life and failed to act due to fearing for his life. Do I think it's going to work? I don't think so. But we'll see. But that's where it's going with it. So interesting case. It's definitely not going to be to the jury by tomorrow. I can't see that happening. But I think it'll be to the jury by sometime early next week. But that's going to be our lone trial we're going to have until we find the next one. We'll find out what those are as the trial schedule for next week becomes a little clearer. But in the meantime, guys, let's enjoy ourselves on the two we've got left. Let me hear from you on this one. And as always, guys, let justice prevail. And I'll be talking to you soon.
The system's rigged, man, it's time to break free. Eyes wide open, gotta see what I see. Standing on the front lines, fighting for the truth. Lift the veil of lies, it's time to be the proof. Take a stand, don't you back down. Raise your voice, let's shake the town. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free. Marching with a purpose, we're taking it higher. Fighting through the struggle, igniting the fire. No more silence, we'll make the noise loud. Together in this battle, standing strong and proud. Injustice fades when courage aligns. Rise up together, break the confines. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free. So rise up now, it's our time to shine. Together we'll write a new paradigm. You paradigm, you paradigm.